Inside the intensive care unit, a patient relies on mechanical ventilation with continuous IV antibiotics running. Functional recovery is still days away. The chart confirms the medical necessity of every intervention. The attending physician is clear that the patient cannot be discharged. Yet, on the other end of the administrative pipeline, the payer reviews the case and denies the length of stay extension. This exact scenario occurs daily across American hospitals. The patient remains sick, the care continues, but the authorization expires. When health systems process these extension denials slowly or ineffectively, the cost compounds. Medically necessary days result in immediate denials, and internal resources are entirely consumed by chasing down these elusive retrospective approvals. Administrative processing speeds now exert as much influence over patient discharge timelines as clinical milestones. The math behind this bottleneck is severe. Based on 2024 American Medical Association data, physicians and their staff complete an average of 39 prior authorization requests per physician every single week. This diagram compares a standard 40-hour workweek to the administrative burden of those requests. Exactly 13 hours, nearly a third of the week, are consumed entirely by authorization paperwork and payer calls, draining time directly from patient care. While outpatient clinics struggle with initial approvals, the situation inside inpatient facilities requires active management for the duration of the patient's admission. Recent Medicare Advantage analysis by KFF details the scope. 96% of acute inpatient hospital stays covered under these plans now require prior authorization. Inpatient stays now require continuous authorization management, creating a daily, compounding workload for the hospital census. Revenue cycle teams can generally predict and standardize initial admission authorizations. But length of stay extensions present an entirely different operational challenge, introducing highly variable requirements mid-admission. Payers strictly limit initial authorizations, typically granting only 3 to 5 days for acute care admissions and 1 to 2 days for observation stays. The very moment a patient exceeds that narrow window, the hospital is immediately responsible for submitting brand new clinical evidence to prove that the current level of care is still medically required. This tracks the financial fallout. Inpatient claim denial rates climbed to 6.6% in a single year, driving overall initial denials to 11.6%. This increase stems from clinical necessity disputes, contributing to the nearly $20 billion providers spend annually appealing denied claims. Missing an extension window or submitting incomplete documentation converts a medically necessary stay into an immediate clinical denial. The most overlooked operational risk in length of stay management is the peer-to-peer review window. Health systems are operating against aggressive deadlines that shrink without warning. This collapsing timeline shows recent payer policy changes, like United Healthcare reducing its peer-to-peer request window from 30 days down to just 14 days after the initial denial. The timing pressure on the initial submission is even more rigid. Once authorized days expire, hospitals have exactly 24 to 48 hours to submit the extension before the payer classifies the continued stay as unauthorized. Retrospective authorizations for emergency department admissions are similarly constrained, with review windows permanently closing within 7 to 14 days post-service. Teams relying on weekly or biweekly batch processing cannot survive these timelines. The delay ensures they miss deadlines and effectively kill valid claims before a clinical reviewer even evaluates them. Compiling an extension requires a massive amount of clinical data. For an ICU continuation, staff must pull daily progress notes, current vitals, ventilator settings, and arterial blood gas trends. Extracting the data is only the first step. The true difficulty lies in matching that specific clinical picture against the exact MCG or interqual continuation criteria required by the patient's individual payer. The criteria update constantly across multiple payer products, Medicare Advantage plans, and portals. Expecting human staff to remain fluent in every shifting rule matrix is an operational impossibility. Hospitals rely on registered nurses for this utilization review work, requiring a median total compensation of nearly $80,000 per year. When turnover hits, which it frequently does, the coverage gaps leave remaining staff overwhelmed. Applying expensive human labor to a high-volume, repetitive data matching problem yields diminishing returns. It drives up loaded costs while increasing the likelihood of manual errors. Addressing the information velocity gap requires a structural change, separating clinical interpretation from the repetitive task of data extraction. The architecture of this workflow begins with an AWS Bedrock clinical reasoning agent designed specifically to parse complex medical records. This split path diagram shows how the system separates the workflow. On the left, within minutes of the extension window opening, the AI autonomously extracts daily progress notes, labs, and vitals without any human trigger. Still operating on the left path, the agent instantly maps the extracted data to the exact MCG or interqual criteria the specific payer demands, drafting a continued necessity narrative. On the right path, human expertise takes over. An AAPC-credentialed specialist reviews the AI-generated draft, refines the clinical arguments, and executes the final submission through the proper payer portal. This precise division of labor allows the AI to solve the documentation speed problem, while the credentialed specialist maintains strict clinical oversight on every single case. Consider a 65-year-old ICU patient requiring mechanical ventilation and prone positioning. On day 5, a commercial payer denies further ICU days. The payer's initial reviewer asserts the patient is ready for floor step-down. The clinical reality, an ongoing requirement for continuous positive airway pressure titration, tells the exact opposite story. This side-by-side matrix demonstrates the response. The continuous workflow instantly pulls the patient's arterial blood gas trends. It maps the exact PaO2 over FiO2 ratio against the payer's step-down criteria, mathematically proving the patient fails to meet the requirements for discharge. 30 minutes before the peer-to-peer call, the attending physician receives a structured chart brief containing the exact criteria citations and ventilator logs needed to defend the stay. The attending physician goes into the call holding undeniable, criteria-matched evidence. The result is a 4-day intensive care extension approved directly on the phone, executed entirely within a 4-hour window. Initial denial of an extension triggers a secondary recovery process. Even at this stage, the revenue is capturable through a structured defense. The data proves this is highly winnable. 81.7% of appealed prior authorization denials are fully or partially overturned. Capturing that overturn rate requires rigorous, active management. It means polling payer portals every 4 hours and automatically generating structured appeal letters backed by complete evidence packs the moment a denial registers. Health systems that lack the infrastructure to execute this specific appeals protocol at high volume are abandoning recoverable revenue directly to the payers. The payer ecosystem operates on automated logic and rigid deadlines. Relying on manual, human-only teams to counter an algorithmic system guarantees bottlenecks and missed windows. Transitioning away from the manual model is fast. Fully EMR-integrated solutions deploy in just 5 to 10 days, instantly establishing a continuously running authorization engine. By routing the daily data extraction to an external AI hybrid architecture, the hospital removes its internal staffing variable. The revenue cycle is immediately insulated from turnover, sick calls, and unexpected volume spikes. Mastering length of stay extensions requires speed and accuracy. Implementing a system that guarantees both is the most critical revenue defense mechanism a hospital possesses.